Okay, so in this video I'm going to go over how to put together the very simple quiz. In the modules on Canvas there are files that you can download. The very simple quiz is the one where the very simple quiz is completed. Fancyquiz.zip is the complete fancy quiz. So I'm going to show how to put them together in separate videos. The first one, quizsetup.zip, is just the HTML and CSS. It's not the JavaScript. That's what I'm going to use to put together the very simple quiz. So I'm going to show you what the completed very simple quiz looks like so you can see the difference. Okay. So the completed very simple quiz has all of the questions on the same page at the same time. And then you have a button down at the bottom that says grade me. So if I'm going to make some choices, I'm going to say, what would you feed a cat? Let's say high protein cat food. And where should you pet them? Under the chin. Lifespan about 15 years. How many hours? About 16 hours. And then if I click on grade me, oh, I got 4 answers right. So that's the simple quiz. You answer the question and it just tells you how many you got correct. The fancy quiz, by contrast, you get 1 question per page and then you get a more sophisticated looking response. I'm going to go over that in a separate video. We're going to focus on creating just the simple quiz for now. So I'm going to open the quiz setup. Oh, I'm in Chrome, sorry. In Dreamweaver, I'm going to open the quiz setup. Excuse me. Okay, so here we go. We're back to just the questions and the CSS. Okay, so, and again, just to remind us what that looks like. There we go. So the first thing I want to do is I want to, when I click one of these buttons, I want to activate a JavaScript that tells me whether or not I clicked the right answer or the wrong answer. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a JavaScript and I'm going to set up a very simple script that will just give us that message. So, okay. So I'm going to make a JavaScript. So in Dreamweaver, I'm going to say File, New. It says, what kind of file do you want to make? I say JavaScript. And it says JavaScript document at the top. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this file. And I'm going to call this simple.js for the simple quiz. Now in JavaScript, what I want to do, I'm going to create a function. A function is a command like write, document.write, or log in console.log. But in this case, I'm going to create a function that I define that's going to help score my questions. So the way I create my own function is I say function. That tells it I'm making a function. Then I give it a name. Let's call it quiz. And then all functions have open and close parens. And then the open and close curly braces, just like in CSS. So what we want to do is we want to know that if when I click on this button, am I going to get a right answer or a wrong answer? So in order to do that, the HTML actually needs to send me a message. And the way it sends it to me is, notice these little parens here next to the word quiz. We know that that means it's a function. So if I need to send a message from one part to another, one way that I can do that is I can put the message inside of the curly braces, or sorry, inside of that those parentheses. So here I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put, this is actually going to be a variable. I'm going to call it the answer. Function quiz the answer, and that means I'm going to use this variable called the answer to be able to determine whether or not they click the right answer. Now, I'm not sending any messages over yet. I have to figure out how to do that. So to do that, I'm going to go back to my HTML. And the way I'm going to set this up is for each of the answers here. So under Q1, canned tuna, cats eat anything, high protein cat food, milk and cream, I'm going to activate that function. So here, we do that by using something called an event. And the event that we're going to use here is called onClick. And what that means basically means when the user clicks on the button that says canned tuna. So I'm going to write it this way. OnClick, you can see right there, it's coming up. And then in the quotes, I'm going to put the name of my function. So I called my function quiz. Oops, sorry. Okay, so this says when this button is clicked, that's what onClick is, go find a function named quiz and execute it. Okay, so right now I have a function quiz. It's not really doing anything, but what I want to do, what I want to do is I want to send it a message in the parens here that says, is this the right answer or the wrong answer? So inside of here, since canned tuna is the wrong answer, I'm just going to put the word wrong in single quotes. Now, I could probably use double quotes here, but it's one of those things where if you use double quotes on the outside, like we are here, like double quote quiz, paren, wrong, close paren, semicolon, double quotes, sometimes it gets confused. So if you're in this situation in programming, you probably want to go for the double quote to single quote method like we do in regular writing. So what this does, so onClick is an event. There's a few events that the computer knows about. An event is something that happens that the computer knows about. So something gets clicked, a key gets pressed, a page gets loaded. All of these things are events that can trigger actions. So in this case, we're going to use the clicking event, the onClick. So onClick, it says, go execute a function called quiz and send it a message wrong. That's why we have this inside of the parentheses. So it's going to pass this message over to the function quiz. And if we look at the function quiz, remember we set this up, so now it says quiz and then in paren the answer. So the answer is basically a variable that's going to hold whatever the message is that the HTML is sending to the JavaScript. And we don't call it right or wrong. I mean, we don't call it wrong. We don't call it right. We don't want it to have the same name because we don't know if it's going to be right or wrong. We don't know what the contents are. So we're going to do something simple here. And we're going to say if the answer is the same as right, in other words, if we got it right, then let's just set up an alert. Alert, you chose the right answer. Okay, so that's it. If the answer is the same, is the word right, then we chose the right answer. And again, notice the 3 equal signs here. Whenever you see 2 elements on either side of an equal sign, of a triple equal sign, it's not saying that these 2 are equal, or it's not saying that one becomes the other. It's a question. It says true or false. The answer is the same thing as right. Okay, but in this case, we know that the answer is going to be wrong. So we have to set up another condition here. So if it's right, then we're going to say you chose the right answer. So now, since there's only 2 answers, we can just say else. So in all other cases, alert, quote, you chose the wrong answer. So that's pretty simple. We're going to get a couple of red lines here now. The first one is quiz is defined but never used. That's because we have our JavaScript in a separate file from our HTML, so that's okay, don't worry about it. And then it says use strict. We don't have to do that. It's just a declaration at the top that we're using strict JavaScript, but it is not necessary. So you can ignore those two. Okay, now, so we have a very simple function here. So when we click a button and it calls function quiz, if inside of the paren on the HTML it says right, it's going to alert you got the right answer. But if in the paren in the HTML it says wrong or it says something else, it will say you chose the wrong answer. Now to make this work, we still have one more step. While we have our script and we have our HTML, what we do not have is a link between the two. So just like we link to the CSS up here in the head, sorry, here we go, up here in the head, we're going to link our JavaScript, and we link it a little bit differently than we do a style sheet. So I'm going to put the link to the JavaScript just below the link to the style sheet, and this is how we do it. So we have an external JavaScript. We're going to use the script tag, and then we're going to say src. src is like href in the link to the style sheet, except in this case it means source, and it basically means the same thing. Where is the script located? And then I should be able to see it here at simple.js. And then you have to say type equals quote text slash JavaScript. Okay, now you can see my color coding is broken. So see how everything down here is white? It shouldn't be. This is because unlike the link to the style sheet, the link to the script tag, it has a closing tag. So even if I don't put anything between these two tags, they're still gonna, we still have to put a closing tag. So I'm gonna put close script like that. And now my color coding comes back. So then I'm going to just hit save. So now I'm going to test. So remember, we only put the script on here. Let's see if I click it. Oh, I chose the wrong answer. Look at that. Okay, but look, when I click these other things, nothing happens. That's because we have not attached the script to any of these buttons. We've only attached it to this button. Okay, so let's go ahead and just attach the same script to all of the buttons. Let me show you how that's going to work. That's pretty easy. We've got the basics. So here in the HTML, we can see right here, on-click quiz wrong canned tuna. We're going to take this little section here where it says on-click quiz wrong, all of that part right there. We're going to put it into each of the buttons. So the second one says cats eat anything. So I'm going to go inside of the button tag, but before the close caret here, and I'm going to paste. Okay, now here, high protein cat food, this is actually the right answer, but I'm going to go ahead and paste this here, and then I'm just going to double click the word wrong. My cursor is invisible today, and I'm going to put the word right. And then here, milk and cream, paste it in here. Okay, so just please note here, this is all the same format, all of the same format, right? The only difference here is on the right answer, I put the word right into the quotation marks inside of the parentheses because that's the right answer, and the rest are the wrong answer. And if I go back to my simple.js, I can see right, if I say right, then I should get an alert that says you chose the right answer. So I'm going to preview this. Let's see, canned tuna, wrong. Cats eat anything, wrong. High protein cat food, ding, 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 you chose the right answer. Milk and cream, wrong. Okay, so for now, let's just go through. Let's put the right and wrong. Let's put this on click with quiz wrong or quiz right onto the rest of the 4 questions. There we go. So I'm going to copy this again, put this in here, and I'm just going to set them all to wrong and then edit them. I have a cat sitting in the window in front of me. You can't see him because you can only see my screen. Okay, I may speed this portion up. But you get the idea what I'm doing. I'm just going in, and for each of the buttons, it's very repetitive. You know, it's a continuous format. You know, once I've set it up, I just have to plug everything in and let it play. There's only 4 questions, right? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now, I set all of these answers to wrong, and obviously one of them in each section is right, so I'm going to have to fix that. So here on question 4, about 16 hours, that is the correct answer. So I'm going to change this to right. Oh, I have a boot bug here. Oh, look what I did. Do you see that? I forgot to put a space there. Okay. Okay. So number 4, the about 16 hours is the correct answer. On number 3, about 15 years is the correct answer. And on question 2, under the chin is the correct answer. And on number 1, high protein cat food is the correct answer. Okay, so now theoretically, if we play this game and we just click on a bunch of answers, it should tell us if we're right or wrong. Okay, cats eat anything. Wrong! Under the chin. Oops, I have to click here. Under the chin. Right! How about 5 years? Wrong! 10 years? Wrong! 15 years? Right! You get the idea. So for each one of these answers, we're getting a response. And while this is kind of exciting, you know, if we need some immediate feedback, we can certainly use this method that if you click on something, you get an alert that tells you immediately if you have chosen right or wrong. That's not usually what we want to do. Usually what we want to do is we want to keep score. So when I click this, it adds 1 to the wrong score. And if I click this, it adds 1 to the right score. So in order to do that, we're going to take the alerts out of the if statements, and we're going to create a couple of variables. The variables are rights and wrongs for number of right answers and number of wrong answers. And when the game starts, both rights, the number of right answers is set to 0, and the number of wrong answers are set to 0. That's because we haven't played yet. Every time we click a right answer, we add 1 to right answer. Every time we click a wrong answer, we add 1 to wrong answer. So we're going to set that up in the JavaScript. We can use exactly the same setup here. We don't have to change anything. We still want to tell JavaScript if the answer is right or wrong. So I'm going to go here. Okay, so I'm going to take this out. So instead of alerting, I'm just going to take that out. My cursor is disappearing, sorry. Okay. Instead of that, I'm going to create some variables. Now, there are a few places to create variables. I'm going to create these outside of the function quiz, but in the same document. If I do that, they're called global variables. Sorry. And global variables just means you can use them anywhere in the program, anywhere in your JavaScript. And some variables you don't need to do that, but if you think that you need to do it, then you set them in your JavaScript document at the top. You can set variables that apply to the whole script. We may have another function, so we may have a function other than just function quiz. We may need to use them. Okay, so I have a variable called rights, I have a variable called wrongs, and what I want to do when the game starts is I'm going to add 1 to rights or wrongs depending on if they get a right answer or a wrong answer. So another thing that I should do, just to be on the safe side, is I should set them both to equal 0 in the beginning. This is another reason why I want to set this outside of function quiz. So when the JavaScript is first loaded, we have a variable called rights that's set to 0 and a variable called wrongs that's set to 0. And every time the buttons are clicked, function quiz comes into effect, and it's just going to add 1 to right or wrong. Okay, so watch how this works. So I'm going to say now if the answer is right, I'm going to say rights, that means the variable rights gets set to the variable rights plus 1. That looks really funny, right? That's funny computer math. And what that says is it takes whatever happens to be the current value of the variable rights and add 1 to it. So if this is the first time through, our variable rights is 0. And if we click on something that's the right answer, it gets augmented by 1. So now it's 1. And every time we get a right answer, it gets augmented by 1. So we do the same thing here. Otherwise, wrongs equal. This is equal is actually the triple equal. So this means is assigned or becomes wrongs plus 1. Okay. Now this is great because we are keeping track of rights and wrongs. But one thing that we don't have here is we don't have a way to let someone know if they have we have no way to let people know yet that they have done something. So so the computer is keeping track, but we're not telling the user. So let's bring our alert back for a moment. I'm going to say alert. Let's see. You got and rights. Remember, that's the number of right answers and answers right. So what this is going to do is every time we click on a button, it's going to tell us how many answers we got right. All right. So what's going to happen is this. The JavaScript's going to load. Rights and wrongs are going to be 0. The user's going to click on one of the answers. We're going to evaluate whether the answer is right or wrong. If it's right, we're going to add 1 to right. If it's wrong, we're going to add 1 to wrong, and then we're going to get an alert about how many answers we got right. Okay, let's try it out. Okay, canned tuna. I got 0 answers right. Under the chin, I got 1 answers right. Ha ha ha. About 5 answers. Okay, so now this is getting a little weird because I had 1 answer right because I clicked under the chin, but now I clicked a wrong answer, so I still have 1 answer right. I don't have 2 answers right because this is clearly the wrong answer. So you can see it can be a little bit confusing. You got 1 answers right. So let's modify this script so that it says you got how many answers you got right, and you got wrongs, answers wrong. Okay, this will make it clearer. So we won't have that confusing message that just tells us how many we got right. Okay, so this will tell us both how many answers we got right and how many answers we got wrong. Okay, canned tuna. You got 0 answers right and you got 1 answers wrong. Okay, good. Cats eat anything? 0 answers right and 2 answers wrong. High protein cat food. Okay, 1 answer right, 2 answers wrong. Under the chin, 2 answers right, 2 answers wrong. Play with the toes, 2 answers right. Okay, so you see how it works. So it's keeping track. Okay, so now what we would really like to do though is we would like to encourage people to finish the quiz and then click a button to get their results. That's actually what we would like to do. So instead of alerting them after every button click, let's not say anything until they click on a different button that shows them the results. Okay? All right, so basically here we're going along and we're clicking on buttons. Okay, so what we have here is every time one of the buttons are pressed, the function quiz analyzes whether you pressed a right answer or a wrong answer, and then you get a little alert. And the alert shows us how we are keeping track of the number of right answers and wrong answers that you pressed. But we don't really want to do that. We don't want to give an alert every time someone presses a button. We want them to press a button at the end. So to do that, we're going to have to write another function. We're going to have to write a function outside of function quiz. So we're going to have to make a new function. And the reason for that is we don't want this function to execute when just one of the answers is pushed. We maybe want it to execute if there's another button at the end that says something like submit answers, and then to have it execute. So to do that, I'm going to make a new function, and we'll call this show results. Okay, so right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little alert that tells us how many right and wrong answers we have. I'm going to put it into function show results. Okay, so what should happen here? We have two separate functions. So function quiz goes from line 7 to line 14. See this curly brace here is the end of function quiz. And function show results goes from line 16 to line 18. Okay, so now the difference is every time we click on one of the answers on the HTML, we execute function quiz. We need to find another button that when we click on it, we execute show results. So let's go back to the HTML. I think we're going to have to make one. Okay, so here we go. Every time someone clicks on one of the answers, we call up function quiz and we send it the message of right or wrong. Okay, now this div here where it says div ID equal results, we don't want to put our submit button or show me the answers button in there because this is where the information about how many right or wrong the people got, that's where it's going to go. So I'm going to make a new div. I'm going to call it submit answers. You know, I can call it anything I want to. Sorry. So it's just a div. Okay. And inside of here, I'm going to put a button. And we've been using this P button format. It's good to put a P in front of a button just in case the button gets any ideas of wanting to go up and join another part of your layout. So I'm going to put P. Oh, not a capital P. Button. I'm going to say, show me the answers. Or maybe that's not right. Show me how many I got wrong. Show me my score. There we go. Okay. So right now we have a new div. It's called submit answers. Again, we can call that anything we want. Inside of it is a button. This button says show me my score. And right now if we just preview, nothing very exciting is going on. Oh, I didn't close my P, sorry. That was a mistake. Okay, let me try it again. There we go. Okay, now you can see down here it says show me my score. This is not super exciting. We can change this. But nothing is going to happen when I click this now because I don't have it attached to any script. So what I want to do is I want to put in the on click here inside of this button. On click. Technically on click uses camel casing, which means the on is lowercase and the first letter of click, the C, is uppercase. And what do we call it? Show results. So show, sorry. And this is also camel case, show results. Okay. Now, unlike with a quiz, we don't need to pass any messages over to show results. We don't need to tell it if it's right or wrong because the JavaScript itself knows how many things we got right and how many things we got wrong. So when we click on this, it's going to tell us. When we click on this button at the bottom, it's going to tell us. All right, let's see if it works. Okay, canned tuna, under the chin, 5 years, 8 hours. Show me my score. Oh, you got 1 answers right and 3 answers wrong. Okay, pretty exciting. Let's try it again. I'm going to reload. By the way, I have to reload this because if I keep playing, it's going to keep augmenting rights and wrongs. So I'm going to end up with like 8 right and 5 wrong or something like that. Okay, so let's choose all of the right answers. So what would you feed a cat? High protein cat food. Where should you pet a cat? Under the chin. What is the average lifespan of a house cat? About 15 years. How many hours per day do cats sleep? About 16 hours. Show me my score. I got 4 answers right and 0 answers wrong. There, that's pretty exciting. Okay, so now let's do something a little more fancy. Well, actually, first, before we do that, let's fix this button. So we just gave this a button. It's inside of a button tag, so it has the same styling as all of these buttons. So let's just quickly go into the CSS and make this a little more attractive, a little more easier to see too. So if we look here, this is a button, but it's inside of an ID called Submit Answers. So we can use this information to differentiate this button from these buttons up here. So what we're going to do in the CSS, we're going to say this rule applies to any button within Submit Answers. So these buttons, they're not inside of Submit Answers. This is the only one that is. So let me show you how I'm going to do that. So we can see the button styling here. This is what's currently ruling over our existing Submit Answers button. So if I want to differentiate a button that's within the ID called Submit Answers, I can actually put these two things next to each other. So you want to put them in the order that they appear. So the ID Submit Answers is in the div, and the button is inside of the div. So Submit Answers is on top of the button. So you always want to put it this way. If you do button Submit Answers, it's not going to work. This means any button that's inside of an ID called Submit Answers. So I'm going to say background color, let's just say, let's use the, let's use this orange. This is the background color of the buttons. But instead of having it semi-transparent like it is here, we're going to make it fully opaque. Okay, and then, all right, let's see how that, if that looks any better. Okay, that's a little bit better. Let's make the font family. Let's put it in that Gotham Helvetica New. Let's make the font size, let's say maybe 2M. Okay, so that'll really make it different. And let's maybe not make it 100%. Let's maybe make the width 50%. So this will be a shorter button. Okay, let's see. Okay, pretty good. Let's move this in the center. So it's always problematic to try to move a button in the center of the page. You can't use margin auto, but what you can use is you can set the margin left. You can increase it. So here, this button is 50% of the size of the page. So if we set margin left to 25%, it's going to butt it over 25%. So it should be 25% here, 50% here, and then there'll be 25% left over. So I'm going to set margin left to 25%. Okay, and I'm going to make this bold, this text. It's still not popping enough for me. Okay, so we made the text bold, and we set margin left to 25%, which should shove our Submit Answers button into the center, more into the center of the page. Let's see. Okay, that's better. Actually, I like this impact. Let's make impact. This should solve this problem. So I'm going to use the impact font. There we go. I don't think I need to set the font weight to bold. Okay. That should be even more dramatic. Okay, much better. All right, so same thing. So all we did with this button is we set it at the bottom, and we made it 50%, so it's not 100% width like these are, and we set the margin left to 25%. And what that's going to do is it's going to shove the edge of this button 25% over to the right. So because there's a 25% gap from the left-hand side of the page. So that's margin left 25%. Okay, oh, let's add a hover to this. Now we have a hover here, but this is for all the buttons. So let's see if this will work. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm going to use the same technique, Submit Answers button hover. And we're going to set it to that green. Is this green? Yeah, okay. And again, we're going to change the opacity to 1. Let's see if that works. Oh, yeah, very nice. Okay, good. So now when we clicked Canned Tuna, under the chin, I'm only going to get one right this way. 5 years, 8 hours, show me my score, 1 answer's right and 3 answers wrong. Okay, good. Okay, so I've cleaned up my button, but now I still have the problem where when I click Show Me My Score, it's still giving me the alert. I don't want the alert. What I want to do is I want to write the answer to that results div that I have sitting in the HTML that is currently empty. Let's look at the HTML and see what I mean. So here. So here's our Submit Answers button. And just below it, we have a div with ID results. And this is where we're going to write the results in JavaScript. So to do that, we're going to get rid of the alert, and we're going to use a JavaScript function called getElementById. And what that will allow us to do is we'll be able to say getElementById And then we'll tell it results ID, the ID named results, and put into it text that says you got you got rights number of answers right. Okay, so to do that, we're going to use something, and I'm going to show you something I put on the blog. Changing HTML elements with JavaScript. We're going to use getElementById. This is what it looks like. GetElementById. You put the name of ID in quotes. .inner HTML. This means we're going to replace what's currently inside of the results ID with this brand new stuff. And you can put anything in here in quotes. You can put in some HTML tags if you want. There's a number of things that you can do. There's other ways that you can change elements on the page with JavaScript. You can change the style of something with an ID by using innerHTML.style. You can change images. So I have some examples here, and you can click on them for more information. When we do the fancy quiz, we're going to use some of these. Okay, but for now we're just going to use getElementById. So I'm going to go back to my script. We're still in function show results. So I'm going to get rid of alert. And so now instead of alerting, I'm going to say get element, oh, I'm sorry. It's document get element by ID. And then in paren, in quotes, we put the name of our ID. So in this case, it's results. Dot, and this is what we tell what part of it we're going to change. So in this case, we're going to change what's called the inner HTML. Then we put equal. And then after the equal sign, we tell it what we're going to do. So let's put what we had in the alert, which was something like you got concatenation rights, concatenation space answers right. Okay, is that right? Okay, I always have to check my syntax to make sure I got the syntax correct. Yeah, it looks like it is. Okay, so instead of alerting, we're going to do document, get element by ID. We're looking for an ID whose name is results. And to that ID, we're going to change the inner HTML to you got plus rights. Remember, rights is the variable that tells us how many questions we got right. Answers right. Okay, let's see if it works. Drum roll, please. Yeah, okay. Okay. Haha. All right, let's do canned tuna. Under the chin. About 5 years. About 8 hours. Show me my score. Okay, now I think. Oh, look. Okay, so here's my score. Do you see it down there? It's a teeny tiny type on the left. It says you got 1 answers right. So it did what I wanted to do, but of course, look at that. It's teeny tiny and it's way down there. So what do we need to do? We need to style up the div called results in the CSS, and we can style it up. And as long as there's nothing inside of div results, when we load the page, we won't be able to see it. So let's go to the CSS and let's style up the results div. So I'm going to go to the CSS. I'm going to go down here. And so this is ID results. Okay, let's make this really big so we can see it. So we're going to say, actually, let's do background color Let's make the background black. Color, let's make it coral. Something we will really see. Let's make the font family, let's use that impact. Let's say, let's see if we can use, I don't think we can, let's try it, text align. Let's try putting it in the center. We might not be able to work that. Oh, font size. Let's make it 3M. So it's really huge and we won't be able to miss it. So in the results, once the results show up, once we put something to the results, the background color will be black, the text color will be coral, the font family will be impact. Hopefully we'll see if the text aligns in the center. It may or may not. And then the font size will be 3M. All right, let's go back to Google Chrome. Did we save that? Yeah, okay. Oop, sorry. All right. Real-time preview. All right, it's thinking. So sometimes if real-time preview is slow, you can just do File from Chrome. I'm in the browser, File, Open File. And I'm just going to navigate out to where my simple quiz is. Actually, I'm putting this together in the quiz setup. So I'm going to go to quiz.html. Okay, so we see show me my score, but we don't see that results div yet. So let's choose all the right answers. Let's say high protein cat food, under the chin, 15 years, 16 hours, show me my score. You got 4 answers right. Very exciting. Okay, now let me suggest something else here. And you can see that our results div has its styling that we told it to do in the CSS. But one thing that's kind of awkward is that show me my score button is still there. It would be nice if that sort of went away. So we can do that. So we're going to do one last little trick here, and then that will be the end of our simple quiz. We're going to, when we click on show me my score, it's going to show us the results and it's going to get rid of the show me my score button. And what that does is it's just going to hide it. It's going to make it invisible. And we're going to do that by setting the JavaScript, the display to none. In JavaScript, we can do that. So we use the same format. We say document, get element by ID, inner HTML, but instead of putting some content in there, we say .style display equal none. That's exactly how we do that. So let me show you. So we're going to make the show me my results button disappear when the results are revealed. So we do this by this document, get element by ID. So here we're not going to get rid of the results. We're actually going to get rid of the ID called submit answers. That's the one. We want this button to go away, this one right here, when the results are revealed. So it's called submit answers. Get element by ID, quote, submit answers dot inner HTML dot style equals, I think it's style, no, it's style. Okay, is it inner HTML? Actually, no, it's not. I'm sorry, my mistake. Dot style dot display. So you say, okay, to this ID, I'm changing the style, not the inner HTML, and I'm setting the display equal, quote, none. Okay, yeah, that's how it works. So instead of putting here it says .inner HTML because we're going to change the HTML content. But here we're changing the style. Okay, and what are we changing it to? Display. And then we tell it what the property of display is going to be. So what should happen is after I go through and click on the buttons and get my right and wrong answers, when I click on the results, it's going to show me my results in the results ID, and it's going to hide the button that says show me my results. Okay, so let's see if that works. Okay, I'm just going to reload. Okay, so here we go. We have our button. It's down here that says show me my score. I'm going to go through. I'm going to get them all wrong. So canned tuna, rub the belly, 5 years, 8 hours, show me my score. You got 0 answers right. Notice how there's no longer a button down there. There's no longer a button down there. Because all we now just see is the answer. But have no fear, because if we reload the page again, we can play again. Let's get them all right. What would you feed a cat? High protein cat food. Where should you pet a cat? Oh, you should pet them under the chin. Average lifespan, 15 years. Hours per day, 16. Show me my score. You got 4 answers right. Very exciting. Okay, so this is the end of the simple quiz. So we're going to start from here to do the fancy quiz. And the way the fancy quiz works pretty much works the same way. The difference is every time we click on one of the answers, the question goes away. So we only see one question at a time. And the other thing, which we're going to work on first, is that the answers, the results div, the styling is much more sophisticated, and we can give them a picture and some other things. So, okay. All right. That will be in the next video.